Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. I'm Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 206 of the Wannabe Clutter podcast. On today's episode, I am chatting with Amanda Jefferson about digital clutter. We're going to talk about how we can overcome our digital clutter, why it's so important, how it affects other areas of our life, and she gives us some really great tools and tips and tricks to actually start making progress on the black hole that is digital clutter in our digital spaces. But before we get into our conversation, I want to take a quick moment to thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. It really does mean the world to me that you are taking time out of your busy day to join me and learn something that can help you in your life, hopefully. And so if you enjoy what you hear, there are a few ways that you can help support the show. The first is you can share it with a friend. It also helps you get an accountability partner with you on this journey, and that can be so beneficial to you. So make sure you share it with somebody who you might know is struggling with photos on their phone or email in their inbox, or just understanding how to use and organize all the files they have on their computer. You can also leave a rating and a review for this show. That helps me so much. You can do it wherever you are listening to this podcast at the moment. Just take a moment to subscribe and leave a rating. And you can also comment and share the show on social media. I'm at Wannabe Clutter Free on all the social channels, so that's pretty easy to find me over there as well. But make sure you tag me so that I know that you did that and I can give you a shout out, and it just makes my day. It'd be really nice to connect with you on those platforms as well. And I will leave links in the show notes for where you can find all of this stuff and where you can connect with Amanda on today's show as well. But you can go to wannabeclutterfree.com/206 if you'd like to connect with us on the website. Again, that's wannabeclutterfree.com/206 for more links about how you can connect with Amanda, and the different resources she has will be available there as well. But let's hear a little bit more about my guest today. After 20 years of trying to keep up with the shoulds, Amanda left it all behind to help others let go of what's not serving them. She's the owner of Indigo Organizing, the creator of the Done With You digital organizing coaching program, and one of the world's first KonMari consultants. A TEDx speaker and co-host of the Good Enough-ish podcast, Amanda has been featured in Real Simple, Harpers Bazaar, The Wall Street Journal, and Better Homes and Garden, among others. You are in for a treat today, so give this episode a listen and then make sure you check out the links in the show notes. And now, let's get to our conversation. Well, hey, Amanda, welcome to Wanna Be Clutter Free. How you doing today?
I am so good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's so nice to connect again. We connected through the first Chaos to Calm Summit in January, and I cannot believe that it has already been 4 months since that time. And so I'm just really excited to chat with you today.
I know. I'm so glad to be here too. That summit was so much fun. The Facebook group was like on fire. Everybody was talking about how amazing it was. It was so great. I can't wait for your next one.
Oh, we are so doing it again, and you are so coming back because your topic was, I could not imagine, we had so many people talking so highly about your topic. It was so great. So yeah, you'll definitely be back, but we're going to dive in a little bit about it today. But before we get there, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you help busy moms?
Sure. So I help people conquer their digital clutter and reclaim their productivity. And I do that through a few ways. I work with clients one-on-one. I have actionable trainings, and I also have a really fun accountability group called the Get It Done Club. So I'm kind of at the intersection of tech and productivity.
Oh, I love that. Tech and productivity. What a fun place to be. So, which I think is great. And I think so many times we think of clutter and we think of our physical spaces, but our digital clutter can overwhelm us mentally so easily. And so we'll get into that a little bit, but I want to talk about the shoulds at the beginning, because you say you have transitioned from following the shoulds in your life to helping others let go too. And so what was the turning point for you in making this shift?
It all circled around my 40th birthday. And I had never really been a big birthday milestone person, but something was happening around my 40th birthday where I just I felt like I had been following the shoulds my whole life. I had done I got really good grades and I went to a decent school and I got my MBA and I was, going up, running up the corporate ladder and had, working towards 1.7 children and, Like we were about to shoot photos of us in like denim and white on the beach. You know what I mean? Like it's just like I was following all of those shoulds, and on the surface it looked great, but behind the scenes I was super, super burnt out. I was in like one of the toughest jobs of my career. I was the executive director of a nonprofit, and I had my baby at home, and I was like pumping 3 times a day, like running back and forth on the train, had a super long commute, big fundraising goal. And I just felt really burnt out. And I remember talking to a mentor in that space, and they were like, it's okay. You're going to get your mojo back. Like, I didn't find my voice until I was 40. So I thought, okay, I'm going to turn 40. I'm going to find my voice, which means I'm going to like stay in this amazing career. But the voice was like, I remember being in a conference room and being surrounded by all these fancy board members. And we had an intern that was organizing the supply closet. And I was like, I want to be the intern. I was like, look at all our Sharpies, like, look at our Post-it notes. And I was like, I gotta get off this train. I gotta get off the should train. And I made a decision to become a professional organizer, and people thought I was nuts. But that was kind of my first experiment with like, I'm gonna be nuts. I'm gonna be crazy. I'm gonna make a change. And, 8 years later, I haven't looked back.
Oh, good for you. Oh, I love it. I love that you listened to that voice inside and didn't just bury it down and didn't just say, well, I just must be going through, something, right? I'm just having these crazy thoughts, and because this is a difficult milestone, even though I didn't think it was going to be difficult, and I'm just going to continue where I am and continue with what I'm doing, and, really listening to that inner voice and making that change. So that's brilliant. How did everyone react? Or when you were, when you kind of came out and told your husband, like, hey, guess what? I'm gonna just make a difference.
Right. I mean, because I was the primary breadwinner in our family at the time. And, I had basically gotten like a book 2 months earlier. Like, there's this book that this professional organizer wrote, and you can do this, and this can be a thing. And it was around the same time that Marie Kondo like was training consultants for the first time ever. And there was a ton of buzz around her. So I was like, okay, I can make this happen. But my husband was super on board. I think he was really nervous that I wasn't going to do it. I think he was just leap and we'll figure it out. But I think it was other people around me that were just, are you okay? Like kind of midlife crisis kind of concerns. Like, are you okay? Because they're like, so you're going to like clean closets? I'm like, well, it's actually a lot more than that, but sort of. And I don't know. One of the quotes that helped me at that time was, the people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter. It's a Dr. Seuss quote. And so it was, whoever thinks I've lost my mind right now. Like, and one of the things I talk about in my keynote is like, if people think you're crazy, like you might be onto something. So I was like, people think I'm crazy. I think I'm onto something here.
Ooh, I like that idea. Okay, we're going to quote that and put that out when this episode airs, because I really like that idea that if people think you're crazy, you might be onto something, because it is hard to do something that's different. It's hard to do something that's outside the norm. It makes other people really uncomfortable. So yeah, love that. I love that perspective. And I love that you're bringing the perspective of the corporate world into your organizing, because you talk a lot about digital clutter and digital decluttering. So can you explain what that is and why it's become so important in today's tech savvy and tech heavy world?
Yeah, so digital decluttering is all about kind of getting to a place where you can easily navigate all of your digital and tech stuff. It's very similar to our physical stuff in the sense that it feels like a calm place. It feels like we can easily identify what it is that we're looking for. I feel like in the tech world, so many of us just feel like we're just constantly fighting against our tech. It just never stops coming, the never ending emails. You can't find the important file. Like you search for it and then you find it and then you lose it and then you search for it again. Constantly losing and resetting passwords. My husband is like my worst client. He resets his Apple password like every time we sit down to watch Apple TV. I'm like, I'm like, I can't believe that, anyway. So it's like kind of like this death by a thousand cuts. In our podcast, the Good Enoughish podcast with my co-host Brooke Forey, we talk a lot about friction and like just this friction that we all experience in our daily lives. And I think so much about organizing our physical spaces and our digital and tech spaces is all about like removing that friction. And in tech, it's for a lot of people, it just feels like all friction all day long. So it's about helping people get to a place where they, with their emails, their files, their passwords, their photos, their Chrome bookmarks, that they can like easily navigate between all of these things and have these tools work for them instead of against them.
So good. And yes, and how much lighter you'll feel when all of those things are working together. Because when those are all starting to work together, it doesn't, like you said, you're removing that friction. It doesn't feel like you're coming up against that wall every single moment of every single day. Let's take a quick pause. And when we come back, Amanda's going to walk us through the most common forms of digital clutter and how we can start to calm them down. So, in your experience, what are the most common forms of digital clutter? I think you kind of listed some off there, but what are the ones that you find people struggle with the most, really? And what impact does that clutter have on their lives?
So there's sort of the big five. So email is number one. I think passwords is number two. People are so frustrated with their passwords. Number three is files. And it's funny because it's not a generational thing either. Like people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they're all like, I don't know if my files are in the cloud. I don't know what's going on. There's a lot of just like, I don't know where things are. I think number four is photos. People just, they get to the point they can't even take a photo on their phone anymore because they're out of storage. They don't know where their photos are. They have Google Photos. They have Apple Photos. They don't know how to make a quick album. And then I think number five is just generally understanding how to use the tech. It's like I have a MacBook, but they just handed it to me at the store, but nobody actually kind of taught me how to use it. Or I have an Apple Watch, but I didn't know that I could use it for all of these different things. Like, that you could teach your mom how to use it for fall detection, like it detects falls and aging people. So things like that. So I think like it's those big five are the ones that I see the most. And the impact is huge. There's that statistic that I used to quote all the time when I was doing in-person decluttering, which was we spend 55 minutes a day looking for things. And that adds up to 12 days a year, which is like you spent your vacation looking for things. And I think it's probably more now than 55 minutes a day. And I think a lot of it is, yes, looking for the missing sock and all of that. But I think a lot of it is the password, the files, the emails. And so it's time. Like just yesterday, I was on a call with a financial coach who was helping me. And she needed to access our portal and she couldn't find the password. So I'm coaching her. I was like, okay, let me be the coach for a second. And I was coaching her and I helped her get into the portal. But if we hadn't done that, she would have had to figure it out, then reschedule a call with me, then get back on. So, it was like that would have been her time, my time. So that would have been, hours of extra time that we would have spent that we didn't have to.
What a fascinating example. And I love how you can, this just happened in real time in your life and just being able to solve that issue. And those big five and spending all the time. I know email is a big struggle for me, right? Being able to stay on top of my email, not being overwhelmed when so many emails come in and then having to figure out how to filter them out and do all that kind of stuff and making sure that I'm not a slave to my email where it can start to feel like the running to-do list and like actually being in control of those things. So for someone that is overwhelmed with their digital mess, where is a good place for them to start decluttering? It might not be the email. It might just be the general use of tech or it could be their passwords. Where do you think is the best place for them to start that process?
It's a very much a choose your own adventure type of situation, which I love because I never, in the KonMari method, for example, it's 5 categories. We do them in order: clothing, books, paper, kimono, miscellaneous. But I really wanted to just have people be able to and ask me anything where they could show up and we could talk about, what's bothering them. So a lot of times in our first session together, they'll just sort of do a brain dump. And they'll say, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is confusing. And I'll say, okay, great. Where do you want to start? A lot of times we'll just start with what's bothering them the most and what's creating the most friction in their life, or something that they've been procrastinating on for a really long time. Like, for example, I have a client who loves making photo albums. And she's just like, oh my God, it's just such a mess. And she's hired other photo organizers and she just can't. And she's like, I just really want to organize my photos. And so in her case, I try to make things a lot more bite sized and say, okay, listen, we're not going to organize all of your photos. What we're going to do is we're going to make an album about your recent trip to China. Like, that's what we're going to do. And in the process of that, we're going to figure out how to put things into albums and which service you're going to use. And that's going to give you the momentum that you need to be like, okay, great. I know how to do this versus this mammoth job of organize my photos. Yeah. So I like to start kind of bite sized, but I tend to like to just start with what's driving you the most nuts.
Yeah. I feel the same way with physical spaces, right? Where's the rub? What is causing you the most friction on a daily basis? What's causing you the most headache, the most, yeah, just anger and angst and overwhelm, and start there. So I love that you are doing the same just in the digital realm. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think so I think sometimes too it can be like for some people it's their desktop. Like everybody's afraid of their desktop. For us it's kind of like their desktop is like their entryway. You know what I mean? It's like the first thing that people see when they walk into their house, and their desktop is the first thing that people see when they open their computer, and people are usually so embarrassed. I'll be like, "Okay, go ahead and share your screen." And they'll be like, "I don't want to." Like, but then in like 5 minutes, I can be like, "Okay, we're gonna take all of this and we're gonna put it here." And they're like, "Oh my God, that looks so great. Like, can I choose a really cool image to put there?" So it's almost like clearing off a dining room table and putting a vase of flowers there and showing somebody the possibility of like, this is what it can feel like when you open your laptop every day. So I like to give people those quick wins because it tends to be like, oh my God, my desktop is so embarrassing. Or that's what gets shown when I accidentally show it on Zoom. And now they're like, look at me, I have my act all together.
Yes, that feeling. Oh my gosh, that's the best feeling. A feeling, yeah, I can do this. I can go attack my day because I feel together and I feel like I can do it. So, oh, that is so great. And that analogy is perfect too. I love that, where it's the dining table that you cleared it off and you can use it now for its intended purpose, and you can feel good about inviting people into your space, whether that's digital or physical. So good, so good. We're going to pause one more time. And when we come back, Amanda is going to walk us through her favorite tools and techniques for actually managing our digital files and emails more effectively. Could you share some of your favorite tools or techniques that you recommend for managing digital files and emails effectively?
So I call myself an email whisperer. I feel like I can get into Gmail and just like, it's like this wild horse that I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you how to tame a wild horse. And there's really easy, simple things that you can do. Like, for example, most people view Gmail in the sort of standard default way, but there's actually a way to view your email that's called priority inbox that chunks it out into different sections. So it can chunk it out into important and unread, starred, things that need action, and everything else. And so you can actually organize it in a way that's just so much easier for your brain to digest. I also in Gmail really like to use filters, labels with pretty colors. My clients love making their labels pretty colors. It's kind of that idea of we just cleared off the dining room table and now we're going to put a vase of flowers there. So it's just like making your Gmail feel more joyful, feel more digestible is something that I love to do. So, and that is so great because it takes like 5 minutes. I'm like, do this. And they're like, oh, it looks like a totally different email. The other thing, tools and tips that I like to really share are about people's files. You know, on Mac, we have Finder. On Windows, we have Windows Explorer. And that's kind of like our filing cabinet in our office. And a lot of people's filing cabinets look like we just shoved a whole bunch of pieces of paper in there and like shut the drawer, right? That's what our actual files look like. But there's all these really cool ways to use favorites and make things really much more accessible. And even things, so like Dropbox and Google Drive are my favorite tools for cloud, saving things on the cloud. And most people go to google.com or dropbox.com to access those resources. They don't know that they can actually put those inside of Windows Explorer or Finder so that you can access all of those files right there. So those are apps that I really like telling people about. And I think Chrome, I'm a huge fan of Chrome. I love Chrome as a search engine. I love teaching people about how to use all the bookmarks to really supercharge your life. And then the last thing I'll say is 1Password. I'm like the regional representative of 1Password because do you use 1Password?
I do. Are you self-appointed regional ambassador?
Yes. Yeah, they don't know that I work for them. They don't know that I'm an employee of 1Password, but I am. I always look to see if they have an affiliate link because I'm like, please, I'm recommending this 100 times a day. Can you give me money for this? But it makes a huge difference.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. And it's nice because we can share passwords across like our family. So if my husband has something like, I just the other day I needed the password for Skype or something and it was like his account on a different phone. And so I was just like, can you just put it in the vault? And so it's in the family vault and then I can get it on my phone and it just makes it so much easier. And there are these like awesomely long passwords that I never have to type in and I just put my little fingerprint on there and I'm like, do it. Fill it in.
Yes. And especially these days because these hackers are getting smarter and smarter. And I feel like every day I hear about people's Facebook getting hacked, and some people are losing livelihoods because they have this huge following and they can't get back in. So it's like you do need those gobbledygook passwords with two-factor authentication and all those annoying text messages that get sent to you because it's important today. So I'm a huge fan of 1Password. Most people keep their passwords in their notes on their phone, like the Notes app. Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry, mom, I'm going to out you. Sorry, mom.
You have a confession?
No, it's someone else's. They write them down on like the legal pad. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Okay.
I had a client who they kept their passwords in a notebook, but they were riddles. So they would be like, the bank password is a bluebird that flies over the ocean plus Evan's middle name. But then they would like go back and try to decipher this and be like, what bluebird flies over the ocean?
Oh, clever.
Yeah, that one I thought, yeah, it was clever. Not effective, but clever.
Clever. But yeah, if you can't remember what the riddle is, it gets a little, yeah. And then no one else is going to be able to figure that out. Like yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. We could nerd out on this all day. Okay, we're going to move on because I know other people are like, okay, 1Password, got it.
You don't want to talk about passwords for 20 minutes?
It's very exciting. I got it. Okay, I'll look up 1Password. So definitely check that out. Those are some really good tools. And yes, they're all going to have a slight learning curve, right? You're going to have to learn how to utilize these tools. But once you do, I think the initial investment completely pays off in the mental clarity and decluttering and just being able to use these things effectively and having them help you instead of you feeling like you're a slave to your technology.
For sure. And I do think that this is why I've been very excited to pivot into this world of sort of tech coaching and tech decluttering because they do have a steep learning curve. And a lot of times what will happen is that people will try this 1Password. Okay, this article told me that I should try 1Password, and they try it and it's hard and they give up and they just go back to doing it the old way. Versus if you can just have somebody walk you through it for 10 minutes, it's like, oh, okay. So I love those light bulb moments when I can be like, okay, we just need to like figure this out together. Because when I am trying to figure something out, I'm like a dog with a bone. Like I'm like, oh no, I see all those errors coming through and they are not going to stop us. And other people are like, forget it, so I like that.
Oh, so nice to have someone in your corner when you are struggling and trying to figure that stuff out. So that's awesome. And then you alluded to this early on when you were going through that transition at 40 of just like, I want to do something else. And the KonMari consulting path had come out for you. So you were one of the world's first KonMari consultants. And are there ways for you or that you see for us to apply those principles to digital decluttering? Because, like you said at the beginning, she's got her 5 categories, but they're all physical. How do we do this with our digital decluttering?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's all just about letting go of what doesn't serve you and focusing on the joy, making these things joyful tools in our life that make our life easier. So, for example, I have clients that might have like a renovation going on or they're flipping a house and they can never find the floor plan. They can never find the contact for the architect. They have all these different inspirations that are all over Chrome, but they don't want to close the Chrome tabs because they're worried that they're going to lose it, right? If we can get them to a place where they have all of this information like saved in a Dropbox folder and all of the emails that are flying back and forth saved in an email folder and a Chrome bookmark that has all of their inspiration all together, then they're like, I can focus on this joyful project. And, the project doesn't feel so stressful and overwhelming because I'm just kind of seamlessly moving back and forth. So I very much like people to like, I have clients that have started by hating their email. And then they're like, I kind of like doing my email. I getting in there and cleaning it up and using my pretty labels. And I'm actually having fun with it now.
And that was the feedback that we got at the Chaos to Calm Summit for your talk. We definitely, heard that a lot of like, email was so difficult. And just the 3 little tips you gave people in there took them from that place of being so frustrated to being like, oh, I'm excited to get through the rest of it, And that is just such an amazing, ah, weight lifted off of people's shoulders and this allowing them to be like, I can be productive and I can get this stuff done. So that is awesome. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like paper is one of the KonMari categories that's incredibly difficult for people. And it's like you can't find joy in your cable bill. You know what I mean? So one of the things that I tell people nobody has a cable bill anymore, by the way, but one of the things I tell people is like get tools that spark joy. So like get a beautiful letter opener, get markers that you love, get like a letterbox that you love working with so that the act of going through your mail, the act of going through your paper feels kind of joyful. So it's the kind of the same idea with the tech stuff. If you're in an environment where it feels joyful, then you're not going to dread it as much.
That's a great little twist. I love that because you're right. It does drive me a little crazy when people get snarky and they're like, "Well, this thing doesn't bring me joy. Should I get rid of it?" And I'm like, "You're missing the point. You're missing the point. I don't like cleaning my toilets either, but that doesn't mean I get to throw out the toilet brush because it's things that have to get done, right?" So I love that little spin on it. I love that the tools. Get a toilet brush that you enjoy using then, or right, the letter opener. We're talking about digital and paper and things like that. So I love that. Thank you for tying that nicely in a little bow there because yes, I get that we don't always love all of the things. But what are some of those unique challenges that digital cluttering presents, and how do you address these in your coaching?
I think one of the biggest challenges with digital is that it just can feel like an abyss. Like with our physical stuff, it's like I can see it. There's a finite amount of things in this room, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But with the digital stuff, it can just feel like a black hole. And I think also it changes so fast that people are like, okay, as soon as I feel like I kind of understand what's going on here, then things change or the pace is just getting so much faster. I think with digital, I'm much more likely like in physical world, I would never say to anybody, you know what? Let's just take all of this stuff and like throw it in the basement. Or, but I am much more likely in the digital world to just be like, we're going to go nuclear. We're going to set up an archive folder. We're going to dump everything in there. And in the offhand chance you are looking for that email from your kid's first grade teacher 6 years ago telling them she can have a lollipop on Friday, it will be there for you, waiting for you, but it's not going to be like in rotation. So that's what I'm trying to do, like get all this stuff out of rotation. So I'm helping them get from a place of like, this is an abyss to like, no, we're going to take the abyss, we're going to put it in a big archive folder, and then we're going to kind of start over and get a fresh start. I think is what can be really challenging, and people aren't necessarily willing to go nuclear, but I'll be like, "No, we're doing this right now." And and it's not going anywhere. It's just going into a little folder, right?
Well, and I have an interesting story about that. I actually went full nuclear and accidentally deleted all of my archive one time. It was probably, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And I don't know why. I don't know what I was doing, but I think I was moving to a new computer or something. And I was like, I am so sick of these emails. I'm just going to delete this, right? Or I think I thought I was deleting the trash and I ended up deleting the archive. And the archive, for those of you that haven't done this, I had really I had filed all my emails. I had a really great system. I had all these labels set up and these were automatically filing for me. So bills were here and all this, it was great. It was fantastic. I accidentally deleted all of those because all of those files and folders are the archive. And you know what? It was okay. So I went back. I went through and I was like, well, I have deleted 20,000 emails and I can either spend the next however long I want to. I had 30 days, right? It was there for 30 days. And I said, well, I can either spend the next 30 days and go through all of these emails and figure out which ones I actually want to keep or don't need to keep, or I could search for the people and the things that are really important in my life right now. So I went through and I searched all of our family's names, right? So anything I had from my mom, mother-in-law, people that were important in my life, I found their emails and pulled them back into a family folder. And then I found things that were important now, the school we were at now, the things within the last 12 months that I could think of that I would need. And I just pulled those back. And I ended up being like, all right, I'm going to lose 18,000 emails and we're just going to see what happens. Turned out I have not needed a single one of those emails, not a single one. And I could go back probably to the people. If something came up and people were like, oh, asked me about some email, I'd be like, you know what? I am so sorry. I had an email snafu. Could you remind me of what that email was? Could you resend it? Other people have the backlog that I just let go of. And it was actually incredibly freeing to just be like, well, the world didn't end. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that that happened to you and because it gave you that opportunity, right? It's like, okay, like this is happening. One of the tools that I didn't mention earlier that I think is such a great example of what you were just talking about is an email tool called SaneBox. So, yeah, SaneBox. And what's amazing about that is that it will do an enormous audit of all of your email and exactly what you were saying. You have 600 emails from this person. You have like, for example, I lived in South America for a couple of years and I was in like an expat group of women. This was 20 years ago, and I had the 600 emails that had gone back and forth about like, if you want to buy a cat, here's the place, whatever, like, and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that those were still in there. And I could just click and say, delete all, and it just poof, it just made them disappear. So I think SaneBox is a really great way for people to do something that you didn't mean to do, but you could actually
You could do it purposefully, which is probably feels a lot less panicky than I felt for about a full 24 hours of like, oh my God, what did I do? And then I just said, you know what? We're going to live with it. It ended up being great. You're right. I am glad it happened to me. But yeah, there was a hot minute there. I was kind of freaking out. So, as someone who has successfully decluttered their digital space, what strategies do you recommend for maintaining? Because even now, I got rid of all those emails, but it is just one of those things that can creep up. So, how do we maintain this clean slate once we get there? What are your tips and tricks for that?
And one of the things that I was noticing was that I was having these conversations with my digital clients and then giving them homework of saying, okay, we went through your emails and we identified 25 emails that need action. So go ahead and complete the actions on those. And then the next time I would meet with them, they would have 35 emails that needed action. So they were doing a really good job of like sort of getting things in the right place, but then not finding the focused time to do them. So I actually put in place a new club called the Get It Done Club, where we meet. We started off meeting once a week on Fridays, and it's just kind of an accountability group where we all come together. I set a timer. Everybody does whatever they need to do for 50 minutes. I'm like creepily whispering to them, like halfway through, like, you're doing great, guys. And then everybody gets a lot of stuff done. And people do spend that time to do a lot of like, I'm going to clear out my emails. I'm going to clear out my downloads folder. I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm going to delete apps. So, and we've added Monday times as well. So I feel like finding dedicated time where once a week I sit down and do this. I think it's also helpful to have thresholds. Like for me, my email, if I let it go for a couple of days, I can get up to like 500 unread emails like that, So it's like, okay, 500 is my threshold. As soon as I hit 500, then that's when I'm going to like, okay, sit down and kind of go through. And I try to also tell people to think about it like a kitchen, like clean before you cook. So if you go into a messy kitchen, you're not just going to be like, okay, great, let me make spaghetti and meatballs. You're usually going to like clean up and then cook, right? So I tend to, when I go into my email and it's a mess, I'm not allowed to answer any emails until I get everything kind of in the right place first.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. Figure out, like, just group them, categorize them, delete the things that you don't need. I mean, that's how I talk about decluttering, right? Get rid of the garbage first, and then it's so much easier to focus on the things that actually need your productive brain and that actual mental capacity to facilitate that. So I love that. And then, of course, the dedicated time. And that's great that you have the accountability group. That's fantastic for people to be able to just say, like, okay, this is the time. And I'm one of those people that I'm so good about doing things, but I need someone to kind of kick my butt and keep me just on check and just say like, hey, did you do that thing? Oh, shoot. Okay. If I have a deadline, it's so much easier for me to get those done. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I find myself, because I actually scheduled them for myself. I just got diagnosed with ADHD, and I was like, hey, I need this, so I'm going to start a group for it. But I find myself rushing, like in a good way, versus like, oh, I got to go through my email. Ooh, look, like a cat making friends with a rhinoceros on Facebook. Like, if I, like I will get distracted. But if I see that timer, I'm like, oh my God, I told them I'm going to get this done. I got to get this done. So it's like that rush in a good way.
Oh, so good. Yes, I find myself doing that. Okay, I'm going to go over to Instagram because I got to find this person's account that I, owe them something, or I'm going to do something. And all of a sudden I'm like, ugh, real, shoot. And so, yeah, it is nice to have those deadlines, which is really smart and really clever. And I like that. So, all right, well, tell people where they can find you, Amanda. I know they're going to want to check this out and follow up with you and see more of the awesome stuff you have.
Yes, so you can find me at indigoorganizing.com. That's where you'll find all the information about the Get It Done Club, the online courses, the one-on-one coaching. And you can also find me on Instagram at hey.amandaj.
Love it. And then you have a podcast. Remind us of that again.
Yes, thank you. I have the Good Enough-ish podcast with my co-host, Brooke Forey, and you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Good Enough-ish.
Fantastic. I love that. Good enough-ish. So good. And I
say it about everything.
And your emails are fantastic, by the way. I got your email this morning and just talking about the quarter. I'll screen it since we have a lot of families that listen to this and you're in the car and I don't want your kids to be like, but yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how you're going to translate this into a more PG version.
The quarter A-ing instead of the half A-ing. We'll attempt. Hopefully you can fill in the blanks, mamas, as you're listening to this with your kiddos. But yeah, that was a great email that went out today. So awesome. Thank you for that. And before I let you go, though, because my favorite way to end every episode is with 3 rapid fire questions. So the first one is, what does clutter-free mean to you?
To me, it means clear, open space where you actually enjoy being in that space. And when I think of that, I think of my house, my mind, and my computer.
I love it. I love it. Your house, your mind, and your computer. So good. All right. Number 2, what is making you happy right now or in this season of life?
I would say 2 things. Spring. I'm on the East Coast here, so we're in that very small window of time where we can open our windows and it's not like deathly hot and really cold. So I'm loving that right now. And I'm also just loving this season. This tech pivot for me was a newer one. I'm just loving like leaning into this zone of genius. And I think I'm like you, I'm a learner. I'm just learning all the time and I'm just having so much fun. Both helping people, but then also when I get stumped, like, oh, I have no idea how to help you with that, but like dog with a bone, I'm going to figure it out.
Oh, so good. And number 3, what is a goal you have for yourself this year?
So this is a little bit woo, but I'm really big into Jen Sincero, and she's the one that writes all those "You are a bad."
You're a bad A.
Who knew we would have to translate that twice? Yes. So I'm doing one of her courses now, and she's just all about like operating at a high frequency. And so that's kind of my goal that I have for myself right now. Like, no matter what's going on, family, financial, business, whatever, just like bringing a high frequency to everything that I do and knowing that, that's going to come back.
That's a good one. I can feel that from you. That's very cool. I love it. I love that you said that. That's going to be a really good goal for you. And I can't wait to follow up with you. We were just chatting before this started about how I can start meeting up with all of these awesome, amazing women that I talk to on this podcast in these summits. And I talk to you virtually. And I just want to figure out how to get all of this energy into the same physical space where we can actually meet each other. So I'm going to be able to follow up with you later on this year and kind of tap into this high frequency. I love that. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I think you of all people are absolutely going to make that happen. I'm absolutely going to be sitting in a room with you in person at some point in the next few months. I just believe that is going to happen.
Oh, I'm so excited for it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm working on really making these goals happen this year. So, well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some really good things to focus on and ways to start making changes in our digital space that will just spill over into so many other areas of our life and taking that just overwhelm when it comes to, like you said, the black hole of our digital clutter and just bringing a little bit of more focus and peace and clarity around it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
All right. Cheers. Have a good day.
Bye.
Well, I absolutely loved that conversation with Amanda. I am so excited that she has chosen to dive in on this technical side and deal with this digital decluttering because it is one of those areas that is so difficult to manage and overcome. And like she described it, right? It can feel like that black hole where there is no light at the end of the tunnel. It can go on forever. And hopefully you got some really good tips. I hope you enjoyed my story about my tale of deleting everything and having to start basically from scratch. It isn't that bad if that does end up happening to you. It actually was something that really helped free me up from this idea of being tied down to all of these emails and all of this digital kind of overwhelm that had been going on in my life for a little while. And a special thanks to Amanda for joining us on the show and bringing us her expertise and talking us through how we can really start to get a handle on all of this clutter that does feel so heavy. So thank you so much. Make sure you grab those links in the show notes though, because she does have some amazing resources for you. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I would love, love, love to connect with you even more. So come on over. You can comment on this post on Instagram, or you can send me a DM. I am at Wannabe Clutter Free on the social channels. You can also come on over and join our private Facebook group, the Wannabe Minimalist Family Group on Facebook. You can share with the community over there. There will be a discussion thread for this episode, and we, of course, would love to chat with you. You can also leave a review on Apple Podcasts, a comment on Spotify, or even a comment over on YouTube where I can connect with you there. And of course, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you do know someone who could use help with their emails or their photos or their digital clutter in a general sense, go ahead and share this episode with them. It might just be the thing that they need to get over that hurdle and really start making progress in their life. So you could be their lifesaver. And remember, you can get more detailed show notes and all of Amanda's links by heading over to wannabeclutterfree.com/206. And as always, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you walked away from this episode with something that can help you in your everyday life. With that, I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you back here next week when I will be talking with Grace Orman about decluttering in our older years when maybe we have an empty nest or we're dealing with the next stage of life. So make sure you check it out. She has some really interesting information, really great to help our parents and grandparents as well as they might be looking to start decluttering their spaces as they move on to the next stage of life. All right, until next time, take care, keep things simple. Work on that digital clutter, just little bits by little bits. Remember, I believe in you. I know you can do it. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.